Hi guys, it's Amy, Little Farm Quilts. Happy Labor Day weekend. We have Matthew on the camera. And then we have Courtney behind me manning the computer. So we've got the whole staff down here this morning, or this evening. I want it to be morning, I guess. We're going to finish our table runner today, so we're going to give everybody just a few minutes to log on. It has been a busy, long day here today. Last of our family members were taken to the airport very early this morning. They are now safe at home on the West Coast. And we are just, all of us, I think, are just a little bit tired from getting up so early and going to the airport.
We have Trisha and Jackie on.
Nice. Hi,
and
Jackie.
Debbie Crane.
Hi, Trisha. Hi, Deb. We're going to finish the table runner tonight, so if you saw my Tuesday video, you know you should have cut some 2.5-inch squares, whatever fabric you wanted to go around the edge of this quilt to bind it, or 2.5-inch strips. So you should have those setting aside. You should have your table runner. You should have a long enough ruler to be able to trim up your table runner, and you should have a rotary cutter. You also should have an iron. You are going to need an iron on to be able to do the binding. So, sorry if I neglected to tell you that before. And if you need a few minutes to go get an iron, go get one and plug one in. You can manage without it, but it's much easier if you have the iron. So the first thing we're going to do, I did it to one side over here. I'm going to trim up my table runner. So as you see this side, I trimmed everything away, the extra batting and the backing, and I'm going to do the same thing here. And what I'm looking at, since we squared up the top of this in one of the previous things, I'm just lining my ruler up to the edge of the white fabric. Courtney, were you able to share the video okay? And I'm actually going to stand up because I can't do this part sitting down. And I'm just going to cut. This part's a little nerve-wracking for lots of people, and it was for me too in the beginning, but you get used to it.
Are you measuring the white at all, or no?
No, just lining the ruler up to the edge of the white.
You're being careful not to cut your stitch off, right?
Yes, and be careful about the stitch. Really doesn't matter.
Hi, Ashwee.
Hi, Ashwee. So I'm just trimming everything off to the top because the top is already square and it's all stitched. So we want everything kind of even around. We don't want to mess with any of this extra stuff. So when we get to the binding part, when I'm teaching you how to sew these pieces together to make one long continuous binding, my guess is there's going to be a ton of questions that come through. And the reason Matt and Courtney are here is they're going to start, you know, trying to filter some of those questions as we go so that we can try to get them all addressed. So that's the last you will need of your big ruler and your cutter for right now. So I'm just going to get them out of the way, and I'm going to chuck away my scraps. We actually can show more of the sewing room now because the gifted quilts, one has been gifted and I posted pictures of that one, and the other one is in hiding. Almost finished. So that one's not out. So Matt can pan over to the long arm and you can see some projects I'm working on right now.
The labyrinth quilt.
The labyrinth quilt is back on the frame, and that's getting ready to be quilted. And when you come back, you're going to need to get closer to my machine now. So I told Matt I'd warn him before I move so that he could give you guys good views. So I'm moving. So
Jackie says her quilt should be on there.
Her quilt should be on there. Yeah, Jackie. Eventually, huh? You want to lay a strip just like this, right sides up. I guess I should have picked a different colored fabric. It would have showed up better on here. Right side up, just like that. You're going to take another one, put right sides together, just like this. So this is wrong side facing up. This is right side facing up. So you have right sides together, just like this. And where you're going to sew, I should have gotten a pen. I don't know if this one's going to work or not. Okay, so where you're going to sew is this diagonal right here. So if you need to kind of eyeball it with a pen, you can, because that's going to be in the seam allowance and that's not going to make any difference. But you're going to sew from where this meets here to this meets here. You've got a little bit hanging over here, you've got a little bit hanging over here, and I should hang over more. You should hang over the complete selvage, just a mental note on that. So you're going to sew from here to here. Does everybody see my line? And that's how you're going to sew all your strips together, and I'm going to show you a fast way to do this. So you're going to put your sew line right there. I need to find my foot pedal. And you're going to sew right along that line. So you take this one and you're now going to face it like this. This is right side up now.
Okay, it's backed up. You can do that again.
Yep. So you're going to take this. You're going to flip it like this because now it's right side up. And you're going to take another strip, right side down. And if you have to draw a visual, you draw a visual where these two intersect. Right there. Did you get that, Chewy?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to sew. Eventually, what will happen is when you do enough bindings, you're just going to whip through this whole process. So this one I'm going to flip again. And we'll put this one right sides down. And again, for visual, I'm just going to do that. And you're going to, if you want to draw the whole line, draw the whole line. If you want to use a ruler to draw that line, you can draw the ruler to draw that line. I know there's a lot of quilters out there that will pin. We all know how I feel about pinning. I don't do it. Jackie will attest to that. And I'm just going to continue on down. I'm using some scraps for my binding. If you guys had longer pieces that you could cut from, you would use less of these pieces than what I'm using tonight. And to be honest with you, I'm guessing. So this is the real quilting with Amy. I guess, unless I'm doing a big project and then I know, because I know exactly how many inches I'm working with. And in this one, I guess I know how many inches I'm working in, but I did not go through and measure all these pieces.
Debbie says, I'm not going to be able to follow along tonight as I am not that quick and I'm still trimming. I'll watch later and finish tomorrow. That was Debbie Crane. Jackie says, pins are the enemy. And then Ashley Compton says, I love doing scrappy binding, especially with quilts.
Yes, I do too, Ash. This is all the same color, but yes, normally I do. So, I'm going to, because of the way we've sewn them, we have strings in between each intersection. So I'm trimming these strings. Okay, so now we have a long strip. They're all joined. And Matt, you'll be able to back up now. So what we have to do now, I should have got my good scissors now. Sorry, Courtney, I keep bumping into Court back here. So you can do this a couple different ways. I'm going to get this kind of out of the way for a second. Where you've sewn and you have the seam across here, you can do a couple of things. we need to trim off all that extra fabric. So you're going to want to eyeball about 1/4 of an inch and cut this off. And then what I do is I take these triangles off.
The dog ears.
Yep, the dog ears they call them. And then what happens when you open this up, it becomes one straight piece of fabric without all that bulk. So I'm going to show it to you again. We have this sewn like this. I'm going to take my scissors. Some people take rotary cutters and a ruler. I don't find that that's necessary, although feel free if that's what makes you comfortable. And I'm going to take the dog ears off. And again, you're going to get just a straight line of fabric. And I'm going to just work my way down here. What are you laughing at?
I'm sorry.
Courtney's back here giggling.
Yeah.
I think I told you guys in the very beginning that I think that one of the biggest tools you can have for yourself when sewing, whether it be quilting or any kind of sewing, is a really good pair of scissors.
Those are the scissors you're allowed to cut paper with?
No. Matthew's just harassing me now. I get mad when anybody uses my sewing scissors for anything else. It dulls the blades, it nicks the blades, and it makes it hard to cut fabric. I like Fiskars, but there are lots of other brands out there. And I'm on my last one.
Jackie says, where are my scissors? The same place you put your C.
Put her what?
C.
Her
She
C.
spelled scissors S-I-S-S-O-R-S.
Gotcha. Alright, so I'm going to throw these away. Yes, you can throw them away. They've served their purpose. So now we have a long strip. And you obviously have a wrong side where the seams are and a right side. So, I'm going to pull my ironing pad over because this is where you're going to want to iron. You're going to iron this in half, wrong sides together. So you're going to fold it in half and just iron. I am actually going to have you guys use pins when we attach the binding to the table runner. I think it'll make it easier for you. I've done a million bindings, so this doesn't faze me at all, but I think when you first do bindings, it's a little bit of an intimidating process, so I think pins will help. Do I have a thing of pins over there, Courtney? No? I wonder if they're over on Nana's machine.
Gosh darn it, Nana. Stole the pins.
Thanks, babe. It's nice to have help down here. So, I just want to point out, the whole reason we did the seams the way we did for this binding is because when you fold it in half, the bulk of the seam distributes. So, instead of having the seam go this way, and then when you fold it in half, your bulk is lying all in one line, your seam is on the diagonal, which means when you fold it in half, half your seam bulk is here and half your seam bulk is here. That is the whole reason to do it that way. So I would never, I have straight seamed binding before in the past. It doesn't work out well when you go to attach it to the project, in my opinion, I'm sure everybody has their way of doing things, but it just doesn't, especially when you do binding this way. Now, if you were doing a single layer binding where you didn't fold it in half, then it wouldn't matter. But because we're folding it in half, and I think folding it in half gives it a more cleaner look. You don't want that bulk all in one place. So I've got my binding all ironed, and I'm hoping I have enough to go around. I don't know. We'll see. This is how I roll. So when you go to attach this, we're actually going to attach it to the back because we're going to do a machine binding. When you do a machine binding, you attach it to the back, roll it around to the front, and then sew the front. When you do a hand binding, you attach it to the front, roll it to the back, and it's hand sewn on the back. I like the look of a hand binding better, but we're going to teach you a machine binding because that is the easiest one to learn. So I'm going to start with my seams. Raw edges are going to go to the raw edges of your table runner. So I'm going to leave a good 5-6 or more inches out before I place my first pin. And you want to put these flush with the edge. And we haven't used pins up until now.
So you don't start at the corner?
I do not.
Why is that?
Never start a corner. I'll show you when I do the corners. And I'm going to pin probably every 2 or 3 inches. You can pin more frequently if you'd like. My only advice as far as that goes is that if you're going to pin more frequently, understand that you're going to stop more frequently so you can take the pins out before you run over them with your needle. And actually, this is something that I'm going to change. So here on the corner, the seam of my binding is falling right here on the corner, and I don't want that. I have to do some folding on the corner to make it a nice corner, and I don't want a seam in there when I do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scooch this down a little bit further so that that seam does not fall on that corner. And then I'll just pin here. Now, that being said, I've adjusted this corner. If it falls on a subsequent corner, I may have to just work with it. But I prefer not to have the binding seams in at the corner. It just makes it harder to get a nice corner. So when you get to the corner, what you're going to want to do, are you zoomed in? Okay. So you're going to want to fold this up like this. And what you're looking for here is you're looking for this edge to be even with this edge, and you're looking for this to look like 90 degrees. Just like that. And then you're going to fold it down, and your folded edge is going to be even with here, and this edge is going to be even with here, and you're going to stick a pin in it just like this.
Why don't you go back and do it again?
Okay.
Just so everybody gets it.
So we have it off like this. You're going to fold it up like this. And I don't know if you guys notice, it's habit for me now. I finger press everything. So I finger press this across. And see how this edge is
to point right to the point?
Yeah, it's even with this edge.
Okay.
And then this is 90 degrees. And then you fold this down so it's flush in the corner. And then you're going to take a pin and you're going to pin it just like this. And then you just turn your item. And you continue on. And see, we're going to have a seam fall in that corner, and we're just going to work with it. Sometimes you just have to go with how it lays out. There are lots of people that go to extraordinary efforts with bindings so that they never have a seam lay in a corner. I like to avoid it if I can, but quite honestly, you can't always avoid it. So, and it takes a lot of effort to avoid it. So here I am. I've got the seam here. So I'm just going to work a little harder at this corner. So I'm going to fold this up. I'm going to make sure this is nice and flush here. It just takes a little more effort, I think, when you have a seam riding right there in the corner. So we're going to do that. I'm going to lift this up a little bit, like that. It's still not looking the way I want it to. There. That seam really makes it, it doesn't seem like that would be a hard thing, but it really does make it a little more work. So hopefully you guys are having less seams fall in your corners. I'm just gonna work with it the best I can. I probably would pin this in normal life because it's got the seam in there, and otherwise it'll adjust itself underneath my presser foot, and I don't want it to do that. So I would probably pin that in normal life. And I'm probably not going to have enough binding. Get out. Nope.
Should we get the cloth stretcher?
I wish. So Courtney, can you do me a favor? Over there in my my fabric storage system, there's a bin of 2.5-inch strips. Can you grab me that? This is real life sewing with us. This is how I go.
No hokey pokey here.
No fake stuff here. This is a real thing. Is this the 2.5-inch? This is 2-inch, baby. Maybe 2.5.
Courtney can't read.
Yeah, take this one back, buddy. Thanks, babe. 2.5-inch. So I'm just gonna, all I'm gonna do is take another 2.5-inch piece of white. Thank you, dear. We can talk about all the storage system that I have going some other time, because if you guys have questions about that, all you gotta do is put a comment in down below. But I have all these 2.5-inch strips here that are quite handy, so I just grabbed another white one. And I'm gonna impromptu add it.
So Jackie asked what a scooch was. To answer your question, Jackie, a scooch is like a zhuzh, but a zhuzh is done when you're bringing seams together.
Oh my goodness, you two. For everybody that doesn't know, Jackie just left our house this morning to fly back to the West Coast, so she's now heckling me from the West Coast instead of right here in my living room. She was here with her kiddos for a week or so. We had a ball. We had a good time.
She says, you missed me already.
I do. I miss my fly killer even more.
I know, bring him back.
Yeah.
I know. We need our fly killer back.
Nicholas the Great Fly Hunter.
Yeah. So in my normal life, I never run short of binding. Actually, in my normal life, I have so much binding left over that I have enough for a whole nother project. That's why on a shelf over there, there is several rolled up pieces of binding that I've made for other projects that I have plenty left over to do something else. I guess maybe I should have picked one of those to do this project with. But I kind of wanted white, I think. Okay. So now we have enough binding. So let's go back to this. So here we are at the corner again. Nose itches. And again, you're going to fold like this, so everything's kind of even. And you're going to fold back down, and then you're going to pin in the corner. This one doesn't have a seam in it, thankfully.
So first you fold away, then you fold toward.
Yep. And you'll know why when we get to folding this over to the front. It will become very obvious why we did that, and I'll explain it to you when we get that far. See, I'm already getting tired of pinning, so I'm wearing the pin. You can tell when I do pin, I start pinning very close together, and then as I go around, they get farther and farther apart. I just don't like pinning. See, I have a seam worked into this corner again, too, a little bit, so although it's not quite in the corner, it's kind of right after it. And I'm going to pin it. So when we sew this on the machine, when we take it over here to sew it on the machine, you're going to want to sew this slowly and just kind of let the machine chunk away at it. You're not going to want to try to force this through. None of that. You're just going to want to let the machine take its little time. I'm going to grab my 2.5-inch ruler. You do not need a 2.5-inch ruler to do this. I'm going to show you how to do it with one and without one. When you get to this point here, and this is where this might take a little bit because I always have to remember how to do this. I've done a million bindings and I still have to remember and teach myself how to do this. Let's cut the selvage off here so we're not dealing with that. You want this binding that you're coming around with to overlap the other one by 2.5 inches, and then you can cut it off. And you're going to have some chest pain, and it's going to cause some anxiety. Trust me, this will work. So you can do it one or two ways. I have a 2.5-inch ruler, so I could lay it there so the edge butts up against the lower piece, and I could mark this and cut it off. Or you can lay any ruler down like this, bring this over to your 2.5-inch mark, which is right here, mark it and cut it off. Either way, it's going to work. I'm going to just cut it, so everybody take a deep breath. Now this is the part that gets tricky for me, and I gotta tell you, I still, at this stage, sometimes have to rip out stitches. So if I have to rip out stitches tonight, it'll be no different. But we're gonna join these two ends the same way we joined all the rest of it. So this one's gonna be right side up, and this one's gonna be right side down. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put it just like this, just like we had it on the machine before. I'm going to do it. See, this is where I always have to do this. I always have to think about it because, like this, you're the engineer, Chewy. So what I would say is to do it this, so let's do it this way. The short one is right side up. This one is right side down, and you're going to pull it over and do this. And what I'm going to do, so I don't have to rip out stitches, is I'm going to put a pin in where I would be sewing. And that way what you can do is kind of see, yep, and that's how it goes. You can kind of see how it's going to work out. And as long as you have all your raw edges this way, you're good. I can't tell you how many times I have had this twisted and had to take it apart. So I know because I put that pin in there, I've got to sew corner to corner this way. So that's what I'm going to do. Remember guys, well, after we're done with this video, the video posts up and you can pause it, you can stop it, you can replay it, you can do whatever you need to do. Are you close enough?
Debbie Abbott says, I always get messed up with that. I have to watch a video every time.
Well, me too, Deb. And I've done a lot of them, and I still do it. So I'm sewing in the direction the pin is. That's why I put the pin there. So I guess I do use pins. But now I'm going to take it out so I don't run over it.
Ashley says, well, that seems, see what I did there, easier than using a binding tool.
It is easier, Ash. You know how I found this out? What was I watching? And somebody said you have to overlap the ends the exact width of the strips you use for your binding. So some people use 2 1/4 inch binding, and sometimes I use 2 1/4 inch binding. And then you proceed the same here. You cut off the extra. So if you use 2 1/4 inch binding, they have to overlap by 2 1/4 inches. And it works every time. It's just getting it twisting the right direction. I've had it where I've had it all twisted and discombobulated. But see how it matches perfectly now, which is good. So I'm going to throw a pin in here, and then we're going to take it to the machine, and we're going to sew the binding all the way around.
Jackie says, aha, pin.
Yes, I use pins. Sometimes I do. So the cameraman's going to work his way over here. And we're going to do it rough. You want it roughly 1/4 inch. So same seam allowance that we have used every other time. But I will tell you that when you do binding, this you want to take this slow. And you want to reverse, like my reverse button's right here. I'm going to lock stitches. So I'm going to take a couple stitches. I'm going to go back. I'm going to lock. I could go fast on this machine because it's an industrial machine, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go the way I think you guys should go. And stop before you hit the pin. And I'm going to take a drink. It's water. It's water.
It's that other show they drank wine.
Yes. The other show they drink wine. So we're going to get to the corner, and I'm going to show you another little trick here. When you get to the corner, I want you to get your presser foot just over this fold. Get your needle just in there. I want you to take this pin out and hold it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sew straight a few stitches, and then you're going to come right off the corner, and I'll show you. Do it slow, and then twist this and go right off the corner. Okay? Lift your presser foot, pull this around, start at your 1/4 inch.
Why on earth did you do that?
Oh, you'll see when we go to turn the corners on the other side.
Ashley says, don't lie, we all know it's a Amaro sour.
Oh, I wish, Ash. We talked about we were going to drink Amaro sours tonight. We were supposed to drink them when Jackie was here, and obviously we did not do that. Got all the stuff to make them.
She's kind of a cheap date. She likes the cheap beers.
Jackie? Oh, I just ran over a pin.
Oh, you ran over a pin.
I ran over a pin. I was very lucky. It didn't break my needle. The reason you want to just go slow on this and let the machine just kind of chunk through it on its own little pace is because now you have a top, a bottom, batting, and then 2 layers of binding in here. You want to give it time that it needs to be able to chunk through this efficiently. Because otherwise what's going to happen is everything's going to start moving around on you. And when you go to flip this around on the other side, it's not going to work well. Oops. Sorry. Sewing fast. And like I said, you can put pins every 1/2 inch if that's what makes you feel comfortable. You just have to stop every time and take a pin out. Oh, I just dropped a pin. Everybody be careful. You see it? So I need to actually pay Courtney an hourly wage so she can be here whenever I'm sewing, and she can be my assistant all the time. So we're going to do the same thing in this corner. We're going to kind of sew off the item just like we did before. So I'm going to make sure this is lined up. I'm going to get my needle just into these layers. I'm going to take this pin out so I don't hit it.
Good idea.
And so we're going to go here, and then we're going to turn and sew right off the corner.
But you don't cut the thread.
Don't cut the thread, you just turn it and go on. I'll show you what I do with those threads when we get to the point of, I thought that was a thread, it's not, it's a seam. See, now here we had a little what I thought was going to be a wrinkle. It's not really a wrinkle. I sewed up and gave the machine time to work it, and it worked through it just fine. That's why you go slow when you do stuff like this. Give the machine time to chunk through all those layers. My machine also came with a walking foot, which normally I would use for something like this, and it helps the machine go through all these layers. The problem with my walking foot is it makes this machine very loud, and when we do these lives, to have that much background noise going on, I don't know what the audio quality would be. Now this is the seam that has all, this is the corner that has all that seam in it. So I'm really going to slow up and just kind of let it, and then I'm going to sew right off the corner. And it did just fine. And sometimes on a bulky seam, if you go too fast right there, it won't let it pass through, and it'll knot everything up underneath. So you really do want to kind of let it take its time. If you have a normal, everyday sewing machine, it's really important that you take your time. This is an industrial machine, so it could go, if I had the walking foot on, it could go much faster than this, but without the walking foot, I'd just assume. And at this point, honestly, I still, even after all the bindings I've done, I'm still praying that all the corners are going to look okay in the end. Because we don't really know that until we flip it over. But I can tell you already that if I have a corner that doesn't look perfect, I'm not undoing this binding to fix it. We will make it look good, and we will leave it at that. So since this is a table runner, we should talk about care instructions. When you're done with your project, you should run it through the wash. I would for this one's probably going to go through with a load of towels that we have to do, washed on cold, with a color catcher in the wash, just in case any of the fabrics bleed. I do not pre-wash any of my fabrics, so...
Where do you get color catchers?
I get them at Walmart. Or you can order them online. I've gotten them on Amazon before, but Walmart does have them.
Are they with fabric softeners?
I think they're with the dryer sheets in the laundry detergent. I think, but I don't remember now. So I'm meeting up to my stitching, so we're gonna meet it up, and then I'm gonna lock the stitches in. So here comes the moment of truth, because now we're gonna see just how this looks when we fold it over. So this is the moment of truth. We're going to flip this over. I did that corner wrong. I did my corners wrong. I did all my corners wrong. Don't do your corners like I'm doing them. I don't think. Oh, wait.
No, you didn't.
Oh, no, they're okay.
Except turn them inside out.
Yeah. So, guys, what I would do is here on the corners here, where your stitching comes to the corner, I would snip this corner off. No, these are still not the way I usually do them, but I think they're going to work. They're not very good. So you guys will have to chime in as to how your corners are turning, because mine aren't turning very well and they're not looking super great. So now I'm thinking we have to rework the corners. Although,
But you use the hand stitched ones?
no, this is not hand stitched. Hey, Deb Abbott, can you chime in? Did you see what I did wrong?
Jackie's laughing at you. She says, haha, you have a ton of towels to wash. So sorry. So far, nothing's dirty.
Well, I think we're going to do this. I think what I'll have to do is another video on Tuesday for the corners, because I don't know what I did wrong. But I'll have to figure it out. I've done corners a million times. I don't know what happened here. But hold on. Bear with me for just a second. I'm going to try something. I think I might... I know what I did wrong. Yep, I'm going to have to do another video on Tuesday. I'm going to undo the binding, which I said I was not going to do. I am going to undo the binding, so stop sewing your binding, because I've now taught you how to do corners wrong. And I will do a correction video and have it up Tuesday, unless you guys want to hang out while I rip out some stitches, but it's going to take me a little bit to rip out all these stitches. So, guys, I'm so sorry, but stuff happens. I actually did them backwards. So that's the way it goes. But if you aren't fast enough to follow along with me, then you actually are of good benefit, because that means you weren't at the corners and you haven't sewed them down. If you sewed them down, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to pick them out. And we will film a correction video.
Jackie wants to watch.
She wants to watch me rip out all these stitches.
Apparently.
She would.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie tough.
She would. Yeah. So, I will get back to you guys on Tuesday night. Stay tuned for that video. Other than that, and then by then, your table runner will be finished. I will show you the corners and I will show you how to top stitch it in the video. And your table runner will be finished. And then you'll be able to run it through the wash and put it wherever you'd like, okay?
Debbie Crane will absolutely still post this video.
We will still post this video, Deb, so you'll get it all the way up to this point. I just did the corners wrong, so I'm hoping that everybody didn't sew their corners wrong like I did. And if you did, I'm sorry. You're going to have to take your binding off with the seam ripper. We call him Jack the Ripper. And I try not to use him, but honestly, everybody uses them from time to time. And this is no different. So, it's just part of the process. I will post the new video on Tuesday, and then you guys will have a finished table runner. And I will talk more on Tuesday's video about the next sew along, the Christmas lap quilt. Okay? I've only got 2 people wanting a kit for that. If you are one that wants a kit and you have not told me that, please make sure that I know. and I will make sure to get one for you, okay? I'll let you guys know the cost and everything on Tuesday, and other than that, have a good night, and we'll see you on Tuesday.